So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this second day of the Strengthen Your Erasmus Plus kind of program. My name is Isabel Crespo. I'm the education specialist at Europeana and also the ENA education community manager. But let me tell you a little bit about Europeana and our community of education. For most of you, I know that Europeana is quite familiar, but for those who are less knowledgeable about what Europeana is, we're an initiative of the European Union, financially and politically supported by the European Commission. We started in 2008. And we do a lot of things, but we try, in an essence, to make easy for people to use cultural heritage for several purposes, for research, creative industries, for education, but also to simply have fun. We are mostly known for the Europeana platform. This is a platform that gathers millions of objects drawn from galleries, libraries, archives all over Europe. And most importantly, at around 50% of these materials have open licenses, meaning public domain or Creative Commons, with the objective and the aim of facilitating reuse. This content wouldn't be possible with a community of professionals advocating for opening up their collections, increasing the access and democratizing the access to culture. And those professionals, they are organized in an association, the European Network Association, with several communities of practice. Now we are in this event that is organized by the community of education that has a steering group, all professionals in several levels of education and areas of education. We have Alteo Valentini, who is the chair of our community, and here today with us because he's organizing this event with his team in Egina. He will tell us a little bit more in a second. Also, Loa, who is a history teacher in secondary education, Margarita Sani, a cultural manager working for several years in museums, but representing the NEMO, the network, the European Network for Museums Organizations, myself, Ping Kong, that is also here with us today, and she has an initiative for education in Germany, but also she's been working with UNESCO for several years. Marcus Strefferk, he's working in the Anna Frank house in the Netherlands, and he's also an expert in digital technologies, part of our network for several years already. Tatiana Oilinek, she's a professor, expert in teacher training from Ukraine. Raul Gomez, I hope he will join us in a second, but he's a professor assistant now. He's doing his PhD in digital technologies, in digital humanities, and he's a kind of a leader in the young professional sector. He's in many different networks right now and helping us to connect our community activities, ideas, and putting all them together. And Georgia Monolopoulo, she's a museologist, curator. She works in a natural history museum, in archaeological museum in Patras for the Ministry of Culture in Greece. So this is a vibrant community. It's free to join. We organize this kind of events. This is actually an initiative that came from our steering group last year. We organized our first event, and because of the success and the need to connect different professionals in education together to build interesting projects that can be submitted for Erasmus Plus, we decided to repeat the experience. So now I will give the floor to Alteo, who will explain us about how the event today is going to be organized. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Isabel. Thanks a lot, and welcome to everyone. We hope there will be some more people joining us in the next minutes, but anyway, it's good to share ideas on Erasmus Plus. This is the main aim of today's meeting. We have already held a first session on what is called KA1 strand of the program for those organizations interested to exchange learners and staff for learning opportunities. And today, the main focus will be on the so-called KA2 cooperation partnership opportunities. Erasmus is a very huge word of opportunities. It embraces programs for EU countries, non-EU countries, bigger partnerships, smaller ones. But let's say that the main aim of our network, of course, is to stimulate the opportunity also for those organizations that have never had the chance to try what a cooperation partnership means. In this sense, there are some actions regulated by national agencies in all European countries where even a small organization can apply for funds, of course, in collaboration with other 2 organizations from other 2 European countries. This is the aim then of today's event, to share ideas, comments, and for those who already have them, project ideas, project proposals, in order to meet a very important deadline, which is happening in March, the 23rd of March. It will be the last day for submission of project applications at national level for the so-called cooperation partnerships, both the small-scale projects, smaller projects for, let's say, Erasmus Plus beginners, and the partnership for cooperation projects, which are bigger, larger projects for the development of more structured outputs. How it works. So I will, in a while, I will leave the Zoom to my colleague Laura Cremonte, who will give you an overview on the, first of all, the 4 key priorities of the Erasmus Plus program, which in a way are also very relevant for all the European initiatives. And the first session, matchmaking session, will focus on these four priorities. So depending on how many participants there will be at the end of the presentation, we will divide you into groups, or if we stay like this, we will probably stay in one single group, let's see. And by the way, there will be a moderation and the participation of at least one expert in Erasmus Plus, coming from Egina, and possibly a representative of the Europeana Association. The idea is to share opinions and comments, so and also to collect interest from the other participants. In order to have a proper matchmaking event, we would have planned a full day event. So our idea for today is, first of all, to give the possibility to everyone to speak and present their possible ideas. We will use the chat of the Zoom sessions in order to interact. And after the event, we will report you on those organizations and participants who expressed an interest to your possible idea or comment on the different priorities of the program. This is about the first session, which will last about 40 to 45 minutes. During the second matchmaking session, we will try to go a little bit deeper on the sectorial priorities of the program, As you probably know, Erasmus is embracing the overall dimension of education, including school education, vocational training, adult education, and higher education. There are also some other specific programs for youth and sports, which are following a slightly different path that we won't present today. So we will mostly focus on school education priorities, which includes primary and secondary education, vocational education and training, higher education for universities and research institutions, and the widest dimension of the Erasmus Plus program, which is adult education, which really includes a lot of target groups, mostly focusing on those disadvantaged target groups that has less opportunities in education. So the idea is to present you these sectorial priorities and then go back to the breakout rooms, again, changing the setting of the groups and exchanging ideas and possible projects. All right, I think I introduced all the possible rules. So let's start going, checking the main 4 priorities of the program with Laura. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. So these are the 4 Erasmus Plus priorities for the program that started in 2021 and will last until 2027. And in a glance, sorry, it's not okay. So these 4 main priorities, as Alteo said, they apply to different European programs, so not only for Erasmus Plus, and they are about digital transformation, fight against climate change, civic engagement, and social inclusion. To sum up, as you can see here, you have the complete titles that you can find also in the program guide. Just have a look in all of them. Of course, here we have the priority about digital transformation, and the text that you can read is the text that you can find in the program guide. In yellow, you can find the main keywords of these priorities. So what is digital transformation for Erasmus Plus program? So these are the main keywords that we can see in and read in the priority. And they talk about a shift towards digital education, about, of course, digital tools, of course, also related to skills and competencies, teaching, learning, assessment, and engagement in digital education. But also they talk about gender equality and underrepresented groups. This means that we have to ensure digital education for all European citizens. In the middle, you will see the important keyword of European frameworks. For example, these frameworks are Beachcomp, that I think some of you may know. And there are also other, but we have not the time here to discover these interesting frameworks that guide the shift towards digital education. The second horizontal priority is environment and fight against climate change. Again, of course, this is a very important pillar of all European policies and programs. The keywords of these priorities are, of course, the competencies in the sectors related to sustainability, also behavioral changes that you can see on the right. And they talk about agents of change. This is a really interesting definition of how people that are involved in the project can become, after they learn something new, they can become agents of change. Then they talk about future-oriented curricula, so that sustainability and environmental friendly topics are really something that is structuring the new curricula, learning curricula. And we have awareness rising in the middle, because this is the most important thing that you have to obtain when talking about climate change issues. So more and more people have to be aware. And then we have also the new European Bauhaus initiative that for our field here, cultural heritage, is really, really an interesting new paradigm of the European Union. The third one is about civic engagement and participation. Again, here we have really interesting keywords: active citizenship, of course, social and intercultural competencies. So, for example, for school sector, how much these competencies are getting important for the new generation. Not only, of course, but maybe for them it's even more important. Then we talk about critical thinking, media literacy, and of course here we have different definition of the same concept: participation in democratic life, social and civic engagement, and this all goes around the common European values that sometimes are a bit neglected by the by us citizens, and of course also organizations. The last one, which is really, really important, and it's overarching priority, is social inclusion. You will see afterward, when we will talk about the sectoral priorities, that social inclusion or something related to inclusion is always something that you can find in all the topics and sectoral priorities. So it's not only just a horizontal priority. Social inclusion for Erasmus Plus programs means different type of situation. We can sum up saying people with fewer opportunities, but also when we tackle and we work for this priority, we can work with people with disabilities, with migrant background. We will try to work against gender inequalities, and the objective is creating inclusive environments for learning and teaching. And of course, also we have a strong focus on Ukraine. We will see that also in the sectoral priorities. And social inclusion, sorry, I forgot to mention people with socioeconomic difficulties, and also people living in rural and remote areas. This means that high quality education needs to reach all European citizens, regardless what they suffer as a problematic or difficult situation. That's all from my side. Just a quick reminder: when you will write or participate to an Erasmus Plus KA2 project, it is mandatory to choose one of these 4 priorities. So every project has to be somehow has to be focused on one of these. So it's like when you think about your project, you can start by individuating the most the priority that most responds to your project.
Thank you, Lara. Well, I think one of the most important skills and competencies in European projects writing is also, of course, to be innovative, to meet the needs of your organization with the priorities of the program, but also to write and conceive activities in a flexible way. This is also what we are doing now today for this event, where at the moment doesn't really make sense to create rooms given the number of participants, and it will be much more interesting to hear about all the ideas and at least presentation, where you come from and what is your organization about. I would suggest then instead of going straight to the presentations now, to do it based on the different sectors of the program. So I would ask Laura to actually continue presenting the sectoral priorities, starting from school education. And then after this session, maybe we give the word to those organizations, those participants here who work in school education. And then we keep with the other sectors.
Okay, I'm ready.
Great.
So here we have the sectoral priorities as promised. I don't understand why it's not going. Okay, so this first slide sums up the sectors. We don't have sport here because it's quite different from the other sectors. But these 5 are the Erasmus Plus sectors that you will have to choose when you apply for a project. Sorry. So for what concerns formal education is divided between higher education, school education, and VET, meaning vocational education and training. For what concerns non-formal education, we are talking about the approach and everything. We have adult education and youth. Alteo asked me to start from school, and here it is. So these are the sector-specific priorities for the field of school. Of course, here you have only the titles, but if you go in the program guide, and I will put the link just when I finish my presentation, I will put the link to the program guide in the chat so that you can have fun studying the really long program guide. And for each of these priorities, you have a short description, like 10 lines or so, and it explains how you have to understand the title, because it's not always so obvious, let's say so. So the first one is tackling learning disadvantage, early school leaving, and low proficiency in basic skills. The second one is about teachers and education professionals, supporting teachers, school leaders, and other teaching professions. The third is about the development of key competencies, which are more and more important. The fourth is about language teaching and learning. Then we have STEM education, STEM and STEAM. I underlined the definition that has also the A because of arts, and I think that for this network is particularly important and interesting. Then we have early childhood education, meaning very young pupils. Then we have the recognition of learning outcomes for participants in cross-border learning mobility. And then we have supporting innovators at school. So everything that brings innovation in terms of methodology, pedagogical approaches, and so on is about innovating the school setting. And the last one is about Ukraine. You will see that there has been an addendum to the program guide. And in each of the sector, we have now a specific priority focus on somehow supporting Ukraine. So shall I stop or go with
Yes,
stop now?
Thank you.
Okay, good.
So there is before we proceed, there is a question actually from the chat. Is it possible to combine two priorities or even more?
Okay, I answer. In the proposal, you have to choose mandatory. You have to choose one horizontal priorities, which are the 4 that we have seen before. So again, digital transformation, social inclusion, civic participation, and climate change. So one of these, and then you have to choose a couple of maximum of the sectoral specific. If you, if Anna in her question means if you can, for example, pick a priority from the school sector and one from higher education sector, this is a bit risky. I will not go for this way. So it's better that you choose one horizontal priorities and 2 sectoral priorities from the same field, from the same sector, or even 2 horizontal priorities and 1 sectoral. This is also possible. If you have a very, very strong focus on digital and social inclusion, you can, for example, you can choose the 2 horizontal priorities plus 1 sectoral.
Thanks a
lot. But anyway, maximum 3.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, you cannot put more than 3 in the form. All right, then maybe we can move to the next sectorial priorities, which in kind of order is vocational education and training. I also invite my colleagues to think about possible examples if they want to share it afterwards. Thank you. Laura.
Yes. Okay, here we are with vocational education and training. So everything that goes for the upskilling of professionals or future professionals. And so these are the sector-specific priorities of the ET sector that in Italy we call VET, but I have been recently told that it's just us Italian or maybe Italians and Spanish people calling it VET. So I underlined the keywords also for this sector. And as you can see, the first one immediately takes us to the labor market needs. So adapting vocational education and training to the labor market needs. Increasing the flexibility of opportunities in vocational education and training. So more flexibility means different training curricula, for example. Then we have, again, innovation. So you will see some similarities, of course, among the different sectors. We had innovation in the school sector, and now we have innovation also in the vocational sector. Increasing attractiveness of VIT, sorry. What does it mean? If you come from a country like Germany, for example, from my experience, maybe vocational education sounds something really appealing and normal as a choice for young students. If you come from a country like ours, Italy, it's not that attractive. It's still considered a second choice. So this is a big problem for European education area, and this is what this priority stands for. So resolving this problem and make vocational education attractive in all countries. Then we have the quality assurance priority. You will see quality assurance also in the other sectors. It's something very important, and it's all about having a set of frameworks and characteristics that somehow are comparable among the countries and that ensure quality of education. Then we have a priority on internationalization for vocational education providers. This means the mobility of staff and students, which is particularly important for this sector because of the labor market mismatch in some countries and so on. And then again, the last but not least, of course, it's the priority focused on the war in Ukraine. So higher education means academic education, so university, to make it simple. And the some of the priorities that we will see now, you will find many similarities with the priorities that we have seen for school and for vocational education. We start with promoting interconnected higher education systems. This is very important for this sector, as actually Erasmus started with the higher education sector. When I was younger, Erasmus was just the mobility of university students going around Europe. And I was looking today at in a Facebook post. I was reading a Facebook post made by our national agency, and they were saying that actually these mobilities of young students made tons of couples, and actually there are like 1 million of children that were born from couples that were formed during Erasmus mobilities and staying abroad. So this is very funny. Today is Valentine's Day, and it's just to have some fun. So interconnection among higher education institutions has always been the focus of this sector, and it's still really important. Then we have innovation again. This is one of the similarities that I was talking about. Again, we have a focus on STEM and STEAM in higher education, and luckily they also mentioned the women participation in these disciplines, because as you know, in science, technology, engineering and math, that is STEM, we have less female students. Then of course we have priority focusing on excellence, talking about higher education, having a very high quality study path. It's really important. We have a priority that goes back to the horizontal priorities, putting together digital and green capabilities of the higher education sector. This one is a bit more technical, meaning that the organization themselves have to become more digital and green, like in their structures and infrastructures. Then we have another priority that goes back to the horizontal priorities, which is building inclusive higher education system. So how can we make sure that students with a different migrant cultural background are included in the activities? How can we make sure that students with disabilities have the same opportunities as their peers have, and so on? We have then the entrepreneurial skills of students priority. Of course, this is important if we think about the students of today as the leaders of tomorrow. And then again, the last priority is focusing on Ukraine. So how universities in Europe and in Ukraine can collaborate and cooperate to respond to the crisis brought by the war. So that's it. Higher education is, if I may add, among all the 5 sectors, it's maybe the one in which it's a bit less possible to contaminate, let's say so, the sector. So usually in higher education, we have projects that are a bit more focused on research, a bit more, I mean, it's a bit less possible. It's not impossible, but we cannot explore too much the cross cooperation among different sectors. Higher education projects have to be 90% of the partners from the higher education sector, and this is at least my personal experience, or our personal experience here at EGINA.
Yeah, also it's very important to state here that for these type of partnerships, those academic organizations that want to join as partner must have the ECHE accreditation, which is the official accreditation for higher education of the European Commission. So this is this makes, if this is not present even for one partner, then the project proposal is just rejected. So it's really important to make sure that all the higher education organizations are having this recognition.
So actually, we are missing, as you can see from this slide, 2 sectors: adult education and youth. Just a quick overview. No, it's okay. Just a quick overview also on youth, because it's interesting, and hearing some of the organizations that have presented themselves, maybe it's an interesting sector. So adult education, what is an adult learner for Erasmus Plus? It's actually all of us. We are all professionals, but we are at the same time citizens. We have hobbies. We have something that we have to learn. For example, how to use digital health care systems, or digital citizens services, for example, how to get an ID card on the government platforms, and so on. So there are a lot of skills that we have to learn as adults, but that are not linked with our profession. This is really important because it is easy to make the mistake within the sector of vocational education and adult education, because there are some things that are very similar in terms of upskilling and reskilling the learning path of adult people. So just keep in mind that when you are upskilling the professional skills of somebody, then you are in vocational education. When you are upskilling other competencies that are not linked to the professional path, because each of us needs other skills and competencies, then you are in the adult sector. And also the main approach is non-formal education. So regarding the sectoral priorities, we start with inclusiveness and accessibility of adult education. This means that all citizens, all people living in Europe has the right to access quality education. Then we have a very important priority on the recognition of learning path in adult education, since being non-formal education, so it's not something that is structured with certification and curricula and so on. It is important to have a recognized learning path. Then we have a priority focused on learning centers for innovation. So the word innovation comes again. Then we have, as I was mentioning before, the upskilling pathways for adults. improving the competencies of educators, so adult educators, creating and promoting learning opportunities among all citizens and generation. I underline the word generations because here actually the priority focuses also on the elderly population. Then we have quality assurance in adult learning opportunities. Again, this means that it's important to recognize this type of learning path and learning opportunities. Again, the last one refers to the situation in Ukraine. We go to the youth sector, which is rather peculiar in positive terms. It's a different word. Youth speaks youth. So actually in the youth project, they want to see a really active participation of young people, young organizations, and of course the priorities are all directed in this sense. And we start with active citizenship, youth entrepreneurship. And then here we have a similarity with adult education about the quality and recognition of youth work. And then we have reinforcing links between policy, research, and practice in the youth sector. And again, as usual, we have the focus on Ukraine. It is very important to structure the projects in the youth sector within the European Youth Strategy. So the strategy has 3 pillars, which are engage, connect, and empower. And this is something that you should always look at, or at least mention when you are thinking about writing a proposal in the youth sector. We have finished with the sectoral priorities. You could see that there are several similarities. We always talk about innovation. We always talk about inclusion. We always talk about digital skills and competencies in all the sectors. So also what Europeana stands for and works for is really important. And yes, I would say have fun in developing your ideas and proposal. I have heard something really, really interesting topics. And these are the deadlines. So we are very near to the 23rd of February deadline. Actually, sorry, this is for the Key A1 projects. And the 22nd of March, we have the Key A2 projects deadline. So there is 1 month, a bit more than 1 month for the Key A2 projects to be developed. And I'm sure you will find wonderful partners among this network.
And of course, yes, opportunities. I mean, creating partnerships doesn't mean to do it on purpose for one specific cause. There are many ways to do it. It's important to work together. Maybe it's also to have a first experience outside of Erasmus through Europeana. Also activities could be a way to start working together and then build the condition to apply for a project idea. There are many things that you can do in the education community. The MOOC on using Europeana in the classroom, it's starting. In education, it's starting, sorry. We have built with Beats, which is a great program on Mozilla hubs to create nice environments, virtual environments on the priorities of the new European Bauhaus. Let's see if we manage to launch our second low-code fest this year. Last year was great. We were targeting teachers and trying to create new ways to use our APIs from Europeana for creative projects. So let's say that being in the community, it's a great way to start cooperating and then create nice ideas for projects. Let me just conclude my part by really thanking also all the other colleagues who are here. They were ready to facilitate bigger groups. I think we did it well, even if we didn't split into groups. It was really very interesting to learn about different ideas from different sectors and maybe contaminate a little bit each other. But thanks to, of course, Laura, who gave us a very clear, as usual, presentation on Erasmus Plus priorities. Lucrezia, Elisabetta, Nadine, and Margherita. I just left her for, of course, Georgia, but also Margherita, who will be probably in contact with the schools that presented, because she's our school expert. So this is the team from Egina. And it was a pleasure for me organizing these 2 days. We will do it in the future in different formats, but for sure, I think this is a great added value for our network. So I will promote it again.